I know what you're thinking. We are the last one. We'll get through this and then get over to the room door.
That's right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our capstone presentation. We worked with X Energy over the past 9 months, which is an advanced nuclear and fuel company. And our project was to evaluate the effectiveness of having a temporary warehouse on site during the construction of their new Generation 4 XE100 reactor. So before we begin, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves.
I'm Brendan Newsbaum. I'm from Gainesville, Virginia, and I graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in finance.
My name is Justin Alcorta. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I graduated from Virginia Tech with an undergrad in business information technology.
My name is Forrest Webb. I'm from Laurel Fork, Virginia, and I also graduated from Virginia Tech with a degree in management, consulting, and analytics. Not in attendance today is our other teammate, Aiden Cohn, great guy. He's from Norfolk, Virginia, and he graduated with a degree in mechanics from Virginia Tech as well.
We'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for guiding us in this journey. This includes Dr. Matt Hertel and Mr. Matthew Welch from X Energy, as well as our faculty advisor, Dr. Dan Simonza, who is a BIT professor at Virginia Tech. And I'll pass it over to Forrest.
So we started our project by conducting a literature review of articles from a reputable journal, energy journal called Joule, as well as articles sent to us by our program sponsor, Matt Hertel. So through our literature review, we were able to identify the biggest sources of cost overrun in nuclear power plant construction were inconsistent supply of raw materials, as well as costly delays. Two great examples of this are on the screen now. On the left, VC Summer. It was canceled mid-construction after spending $9 billion. And when the initial estimate was only supposed to be $10 billion, the estimate had risen to $25 billion when they eventually canceled it. That picture on the right there is actually as it stands today. When they pulled the plug, they left everything, cranes, construction equipment, they just killed the project. On the right, you see Vogel units 3 and 4. It was able to be completed. They managed to scrape the money together to complete the project, but as you can see, it was completed 7 years late and cost over double what they initially projected it to cost. Now I'll hand it back over to Justin for our project.
Thank you, Forrest. So building off that, as Forrest mentioned, the main cost drivers led us to, X Energy presented the idea of us evaluating the effectiveness of having this temporary warehouse on site during the construction to try to reduce delays caused by insignificant materials. So we were looking at finding the optimal raw material order schedule and temporary warehouse storage plan for X Energy to present to their customer prior to construction. This leads us into our team objectives. We developed a complex model within Excel to estimate the optimal size and costs of the following 3 items: the recurring orders per raw material, the safety stock for raw material, which was basically emergency material or backup materials to have on hand, and the size and cost of the temporary warehouse itself. So using this, we can compare the temporary warehouse costs to the estimated savings, and this gave us an idea of whether building this temporary warehouse would be a good idea. And now I'll pass it over to Brendan.
Thank you, Justin. So first you can see our first model, which was the warehouse cost model. The first factor in the warehouse cost model was the warehouse construction. The warehouse construction was mainly based on the size of the economic order quantity, as well as the additional safety stock. The final component was any buffer space needed just so the workers could be able to transport throughout the warehouse safely. Next was the cost associated with the operation of the warehouse. This mainly consisted of temperature and humidity to ensure that no material spoiled, and also the labor on hand at the warehouse to make sure everything goes smoothly. Next, we have our economic order quantity model. The economic order quantity model had 3 inputs. Those included the total material demand, carrying costs, and ordering costs. Carrying costs are any costs that would fluctuate depending on the size of each order. And ordering costs were costs that would stay consistent regardless of the size of each order. From there, we use those 3 inputs to find the optimal size of each order and the total cost per material for each order and for the total construction process. Here is a screenshot of what the EOQ model looks like. This is just a subset of the total materials that we analyze, but the process is the same for each additional material. In this model, we have the demand rate for each material, the ordering costs, the carrying costs, and with those, we have the EOQ. The EOQ is found by using the square root of 2 times the ordering cost times total demand over the carrying cost. It's important to note these numbers are just placeholders. They're all offset by an amount that we do not know. So any numbers throughout this presentation are just placeholders and can be easily adjusted once the quotes from the vendors are available. Next, we have the safety stock model. This model is important to trying to ensure to the best of our abilities that there would not be any delays in the construction process, because as Forrest mentioned, those are very costly in the construction process. The inputs for this model are the lead time, the mean daily demand for each material, and the standard deviation of each material. From there, we find that we choose a level of risk that we want to associate with each material. For our model, we chose 3.09, z-score of 3.09, which associates with a 99.9% confidence interval. We chose this in order to be as sure as possible that we could do the best we can not to have any delays in the process. And the safety stock is found by multiplying the z-score times the standard deviation of daily demand multiplied by the square root of lead time. Finally, that brings us to our economic analysis. The largest savings that brought by this warehouse is the labor savings. Using a weighted average of the labor rate given to us by X Energy, which again was offset by an amount unknown to us of $116.85 multiplied by 8 hours a day, multiplied by 7,000 workers. The 7,000 workers was sourced from the Nuclear Energy Institute, and that is typically the max number of workers on a project site at a time. So the $6.5 million number can be adjusted depending on where in the construction process we are. And the final economic analysis deals with early activation revenue. Without these delays, the nuclear reactors will be able to get online earlier and be able to start generating revenue. These reactors in particular can either produce electricity or steam. It's important to note that this benefit is not always realized depending on the contract associated with the construction project, but we added it for context. I'll now pass to Forrest for key takeaways.
Thank you, Brendan. So key takeaways we would like to leave you with is, firstly, what we are providing X Energy, there are 3 highly adaptable models, one for the EOQ, one for safety stock, and one for the temporary warehouse size. These models will be easily updatable so that as X Energy acquires accurate quotes from vendors and variables of that nature, our work will remain useful to X Energy well into the future and continue driving decision-making as they break ground on future projects. Next, it's important to note that based on the research that we have conducted on past nuclear power plant construction and the current performance of our model based on the most accurate data available to us, if the outputs of our model are followed, X Energy will see significant mitigation of the problems that nuclear power plant construction companies have run into in the past. It's also important to note that the temporary warehouse is designed to avoid those costly delays in which labor rates are wasted and hopefully prevent with the safety stock the inconsistent raw material supply. And avoiding those 2 problems is what justifies the upfront cost of the temporary warehouse, because it's a large warehouse and that cost will be significant. And lastly, our model will provide X Energy with a more reliable framework for planning and execution. And we also believe that our model will help set X Energy apart from its competitors by giving them a tool to accurately depict to their customers what it will take to construct an XC100 reactor. And if they choose to do so, they can share our model with them and provide them with a tool to help them once they start construction. I'll now hand it back to Justin for some recommendations.
Thank you, Forrest. So building off that, we had a few key recommendations for X Energy. Our first recommendation was to continue developing and testing the model as they input their accurate data. Engage stakeholders. They have many customers, so we want to make sure that they can tailor the model to specific customer needs to get the most effective results in cost estimations. Streamline other proactive risk management strategies to further reduce these cost overruns. and conduct long-term evaluations to really analyze the effectiveness of this model and adjust it for future deployments. And I'll hand it back over to Forrest to wrap up our presentation.
So as we reflect on this capstone experience, first of all, we would love to thank the CBA staff for, accepting us into the program. We feel very lucky to be here. But we gained valuable insight into what the impact of a problem first approach to business analytics can be. Whenever we first started the project, we were kind of looking at what we had and we're like, all right, what can we do with this? And then we pivoted to the literature review, and from there we were able to isolate the problem, and then from there the steps in front of us became more clear, and we were able to break ground on the project and make a lot of progress much quicker. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Wait for it. I was gonna make you work for it.
So great presentation, and what it did for me, simpleton that I am, is it made me see that what you guys developed was a just-in-time plus model. Right? So my question to you becomes, was it that clear early on, or did it take a lot of time?
Like I said, at first we were kind of just talking with our sponsor about really the whole company, because we obviously none of us have experience with the nuclear field except for Aiden. So it took us a while, and then our faculty advisor, Dan Simonza, when we were talking with him, he was just like, hey, this is kind of like what I'm teaching in class right now. Would you guys be interested in taking it this direction? And yeah, a just-in-time system is basically what it is.
I was gonna ask, like, do you think this model could be used for other applications in large scale construction outside of nuclear?
Yeah, our model is like super adaptable, and we included a lot of inputs for X energy specific needs, but these can easily be adjusted for other kinds of projects and their necessary inputs. Yeah.
So to build on that, our model has like an input sheet, like a summary sheet on the first page, and it is we included everything that we could think of, but it's just an Excel model. So if they choose to go into another area of construction other than nuclear, we hope that it would be useful to them.
All right. Thank you.